Crazy news coming off the coast of Spain. There is a subpod of orcas, critically endangered orcas, that are damaging boats, so much so that they're sinking them. We're going to find out how they're doing this and potentially why they're doing this on this episode of the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. Let's start the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode of the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. I am your host, Andrew Lewin, and this is the podcast where you find out what's happening with the ocean, how you can speak up for the ocean, and what you can do to live for a better ocean by taking action. And today's episode, we're going to be talking about some orcas. But before we do, I just want to let you know, I just published an episode. The last episode that you heard before this was our first conservation story episode with Tao Win. This is a series that I've begun, hopefully to never end, but it's with you, audience members, who want to tell your conservation story. Now, Tao was the first person who kind of connected with me, and we were able to make it work to record. She had a great story of becoming sort of a travel entrepreneur with a side of marine science, still looking to get into marine science and conservation, and just a great story of sort of being, I guess, more of a content creator. And you know, looking at it from that point of view and looking out for local people. So I want you guys to check that out. That is episode 1457. That's 1457. It's the episode right before this. I want you to check it out. We're going to be doing more and more. I'm hoping to do at least one a week. We'll see if we can hold up to that. But if you want to get connected with me and tell your conservation story and share it with the audience on this podcast, I'm willing to provide that platform for you. You don't need to be in marine conservation. You don't need to be in marine science. I just want to hear your regular day activities and how you try and, you know, become someone who is trying to live for a better ocean, and maybe even talk about the challenges in there. So I would love to hear your conservation story. You can go to the show notes, click on that Calendly link, and you can arrange a time and we'll figure out a way to get you recorded and get you on this show. So it'll be a lot of fun. Anyway, let's get back into the episode, because this one's a real mystery, a real interesting one. It's been happening since 2020, where a sort of a subpod of orcas have been ramming boats, specifically sailboats, usually around the 40-foot range, and it's gotten worse over the time. Over the past, I guess, little while, there have been 3 boats that have been damaged, so much so that the vessels sank. And it's a really interesting conundrum, because we haven't really seen this before, orcas attacking boats, that's really been reported on at this point. And it's always a mystery of why they're doing it. So we'll just talk, before we go into potentially the why, what's been happening since May 2020. It seems as though the subpod of critically endangered orcas have been ramming boats that are trying to get into the Strait of Gibraltar. And this is a strait that goes into the Mediterranean. This is a very popular spot. There's a lot of sailboats that go out into the Atlantic and sail and for a nice day on the water and then come back in. And these boats are being harassed in May 2020 from these orcas. At the time, we didn't really know the orcas. We didn't really have a lot of information. All we knew was sort of the accounts, witness accounts of people who were on the boats and were, going through this scary situation where these orcas were ramming boats and just kind of going back and then ramming them again and going back, and they would come into the rudders. And they would almost disable the rudders in some cases. They would come in and they would ram the rudders, or they would bite the rudders. Now, this has happened before, where orcas kind of play around with boats as they come in. They're curious. They're very intelligent animals, and they work together. And they would come in and they would nip at the rudders and things like that. We didn't really know why. Couple of things that was sort of put out there as a theory was it could have been the noise of that particular size boat, of the motor coming in. If it's not a sailboat and the motor's on, then the motor might have caused a noise that they didn't like. Marine mammals and orcas being very sensitive to noise and using noise to communicate with other pod members, to be able to hunt, to be able to talk to each other, to be able to protect each other. And so that might have been one of the reasons why this has happened. Or they're thinking that maybe one of the pod members was struck by the motor and got damaged by the motor. And ever since then, that traumatic event sort of caused, a recoil of saying, hey, we're going to attack this boat, or we're not going to let these boats kind of get to us. So we're going to get to them beforehand. Now, we've seen a lot of videos of orcas all over the world come up to boats and just kind of do the spy hop, where they just kind of pop up out of the water and just kind of take a look and see where you're at, and then they go away. Or that, we've seen some orcas who are like looking at dogs on the boat and just kind of looking up and being like, hey, what is this? Very curious. Or even just people, and they come up along the boat. Some have been trying to hunt. I just saw a video right now, which was interesting, and I've seen a couple of different ones where you see seals are hunting, orcas are hunting seals, and the seal pops up on the boat for protection, to get away from the orcas, the last sort of protection. And there's some funny videos of people sort of recording over the video their voices of the seal and things like that, saying, hey, I'm not getting off this boat, when the boat owner wants the seal to get off but doesn't want to touch it, and so forth. And you get some fun ones, but let's be honest, it's Mother Nature. The seals and sea lions are trying to get out of the way so they don't get eaten by the orcas. The last video that I saw was really interesting, where I don't know exactly where it was. It seems like it was somewhere in the U.S., probably the Pacific Northwest, like for the U.S., the Pacific Northeast, if you're looking in the ocean, up near Washington State, around there. And you saw this boat with what looks to be like a family, older family. And you hear, like, there's the recording, and you see the recording, and you hear the people on the boat very scared, especially one person on the boat very, very scared that these orcas are going to ram them. At first, when I saw it, given all the news, I thought maybe this is a recording of the account of what happened in the Strait of Gibraltar, but you quickly realize that these orcas are hunting a seal or sea lion. I couldn't really tell, and this sea lion was trying to get away and was trying to go towards the boat, and you see all these orcas coming to the boat, but you hear the person on the boat, they're going to ram us. Now, I want to make people understand that orcas, there's never been a report of an orca harming a human in the water. And so they pretty much are not as dangerous as they could be, and as much of an apex predator as they are. They haven't hurt humans in the wild. It's different in captivity, but in the wild, they haven't hurt humans. Could they? Absolutely. There's that potential. They, like I said, they are the apex predator. They are agile. They are intelligent. And I'm sure if you tried to harm it, you would hear from it, or you would know what the ramifications of that. However, with this situation in the strait, near the Strait of Gibraltar, it's a scary situation for a lot of people. And what they discovered that it's the same orca pod or subpod that's been attacking. There's an orca, a female orca named White Gladys, and they said that the triggered behavioral change in one orca could have been, something of, she got hit by a motor, or potentially she got trapped by illegal fishing nets or something like that. We don't know exactly what it is. I don't think it would, in my opinion, and I am not an expert in orcas, I find it hard to believe that this orca gets caught in illegal fishing nets from like a sailboat, and so now she's going after sailboats, or illegal fishing net, and all of a sudden she goes after these particular sailboats. And the article doesn't say if it's sailboats again. What happened a couple of years ago in May 2020, it seemed like it was the same type of boat, these 44-foot sailboats that had a motor on it, and they were using their motors. So we don't know exactly what was happening in this situation, but what they're thinking is this White Gladys is the one that comes in and she rams the rudder, and then there's two smaller orcas from the pod who imitate that behavior, and they come in and they ram the rudder while Gladys is going back and gearing up to ram it again. And they ram it so much that they ram the rudder. The rudder is very important in a sailboat, and all of a sudden the people need to get rescued, and they're calling for Mayday while this happens. It's got to be a very scary situation when these orcas are coming straight in, coming in fast, hitting the boat. It's going to affect the boat. People are scared. They're a big animal. And I can understand, what this is happening. The last time this happened, because it happened so many times, and actually, according to one of the articles that I read, which I will link to the article in the show notes, they said that there were more than 500 recorded events. Only 3 boats have been sank because of that. But 500 recorded interaction events. Now, I don't know if that means ramming or if that means there have been interactions with orcas. But obviously, that's not a huge ratio. Still concerning, especially this happening very, it happened May 4th of 2023. So, not far off, and it seems like it's getting worse. So obviously something's been going on. The last time this happened in May, they were banning boats from coming in of a certain size and a certain nature, like sailboats, to make sure that they were safe and to make sure that the orcas are safe, because it's got to be, after a while, I would imagine the orcas got to get damaged or get hurt at some point. And then, of course, they want to keep people safe on their boats. So they were banned for a while. Whether it's going to happen again, I don't know, but we're in May 2023. There's 500 incidents of some sort since May 2020. There's obviously something that's going to happen from a regulation point of view, especially with a critically endangered orca population. A lot of people on social media are in support of protecting the orcas. So it looks like, from a government perspective, based on precedent of what's happened before, there sounds like it's going to be a ban on these types of boats that are going through again, and seeing what's happening, observing and seeing what these orcas are doing and why they're doing it. It'd be really interesting to find out. Don't you think? I would be interested in finding out, especially before I take a boat down that area. But that's where we're at right now with this news. I wanted to kind of let you know because I thought it was really interesting. It's definitely scary for the people involved, I'm sure, and I hope that they're not doing anything to provoke these attacks, but it doesn't seem like they are, other than using their boat. So it sounds like the use of the boat is provoking the attacks, and so we'll see what happens from a policy standpoint. I'll definitely keep you updated. I just heard about this article over the weekend, and I want to kind of get you updated on what's happening, and I'll keep you updated as I follow this article around. But that's it for today's episode. If you have any questions or comments about this show, about this episode, or if you want to share, you can hit me up on Instagram, DM me at How to Protect the Ocean. If you want to be part of the conservation story series, just click that link in the show notes, or that Calendly link, and schedule a show, schedule an appointment to get interviewed. And then, of course, if you want to share this episode, if you think somebody else will, benefit from this, please share this episode. This is how we grow, by you sharing and saying, hey, I love this podcast. You should listen to it if you really like the ocean. Anyway, that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Lewin. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next time, and happy conservation.